This?
Yeah, that's bright back there. The junior senior bankers. There's Kristen and her date. Destin. There's Crystal and her date. And her date. And Miss Zamora.
You're supposed to be here 6.
Mrs. Tornaby and Mr. Tornaby. Mike. Hi. Baker and Mr. Baker. Hello, Mr. Baker. That's where we're sitting over in the corner. Ernie and Pat just sat down. Vanessa won the first door prize. John's going to lead us in prayer.
Okay, I'll pray. Bow your heads and close your eyes. Thanks. Dear Lord, I just thank you for this day, Lord. I ask you please bless this food for our bodies. I pray for these seniors, Lord, for taking this time to honor them, Lord. I pray that you lead them and guide them throughout their lives. And I pray for just a good night.
This is the food here. This is the cake. Look at this. Temple Baptist Academy. Isn't that beautiful? Let's follow Ernie here.
You don't have the light on.
Hey, look at there, boy. It looks wonderful. All right, Mr. Tornaby, now this is on film. Mrs. Tornaby. I'm going to zoom in. That looks wonderful. What is it?
I think it's chicken.
So how was it, Ziggy? Maybe what we'll do is show this at graduation instead of our slides, you guys.
Alright, I want to be in a...
So was it pretty good?
It was good.
Pretty good, huh?
Oh, you talk so much with me. No, he's talking like more just... Never talk. We've gone different way before. These are good kids, but you know what they usually
There's Mr. and Mrs. Thompson and Baker. Baby got coming right underneath his mother.
It depends on what kind you get. Like flash ones like 10. And then you can get you can get like ones that are water. If you want the flash one, push the button.
Man. I think that baby
They used to have a small one when I paid.
Kristen Benema. Wait till everybody comes back.
Wait, I gotta turn my chair around.
We have the TNC Temple News Channel presents the 8 o'clock, now 8:35, Eyewitness News with your co-anchors are Zelda Pizlaws and Ichabod Snow Scratcher.
In our lead story, little Ricky Quinones suffered 7 hours of continuous whiplash when a man claiming to be the devil hijacked his wheelchair and played demolition derby with the orange barrel of an I-40. When asked to describe the man, Ricky just said, he had what seemed to be multiple foreheads.
On the lighter side of the news, today Albuquerque's own Michael Ziggy Zagar.
Wait, I thought you said lighter.
Ouch!
Tried and succeeded to get into the Guinness Book of World Records by eating the same bowl of mini wheats 31 times. When asked how he did it, his manager Crystal Kane, who by the way is the record holder for eating the most bales of hay, said, I think about it, the affected means of regurgitation. G. Duran. When asked to comment on this wonderful surprise, all he said was, I am so excited. I just hope they have plenty of trees near the side of the
He made only to be saved by Thomas Pennington in his basketball shoes. When asked where he found such bright shoes, he responded by saying, they used to be white until Heidi Griffin asked to borrow them, and her pet rat puked on them. When we asked Heidi what made the rat puke neon green, she said he got sick after eating one of Vanessa Aveda's homemade burritos. In a related story, Natasha Carter Brooks is suing Heidi Griffin for $2,500 because she claims the rat also ate her lunch. In further comments, Natasha said she would settle out of court for 10 rows of apples and 20 3-liter bottles of Mountain Dew.
Seems to have lost our satellite feed, so please stand by while we attempt to fix our technical difficulties. Greg. Greg. Patience, and we would also like to thank Greg Lucero for allowing us to use his ears as temporary satellite listeners. Zelda?
Today, Michael Johnson lost his pants in a bet with Christina Humphries. Rumor has it Michael bet Christina that Duke would win the NCAA championship by 20 points. Johnson said, I thought this would be a safe bet. That's why I made it. Humphries commented after winning, I wish I had never made the bet in the first place. This afternoon at the offices of Temple Baptist Academy, Felicia Padilla was rushed to the hospital when she fell off the coffee machine and broke her collarbone. When asked what she was doing on the coffee machine, she began with, I had to turn off the lights, and the only way I could reach the switch was to stand on a box. And when I stood on my tippy toes, I lost my balance and fell to the floor.
In a TNC exclusive, Ed Mosley was asked what he learned in speech class this year. With excellent enunciation, he simply said, to sleep with my eyes open.
In our final story tonight, Dustin McClure denied allegations by a board that he has what seems to be multiple foreheads. I'm Matilda Tisdale.
And I'm Nicholas Snow Scratcher. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Okay, I guess I'll be introducing our speaker for tonight. Our speaker this evening is a man from the dreaded Room 4. His stellar reputation with the students of Temple Baptist is well known. Is as well known as his tests and his uncanny ability to spot tensions. He is always willing to help students with any problems they may be having. And anyone who by chance missed the WWF match the evening before can count on him to welcome in. Even though his taste in football is a little limited to those Cowboys, still feel privileged to have him as a teacher. Please help me welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Baker.
Man.
Raise up at all, or
Golly.
Yeah.
Step on it and pull, Baker.
Well, he's in the dark, Mike.
Try the X-Men.
John Myers.
All right. Well, if I can have your attention just for a little bit here, I know that after dinner speaking is a challenge because I'm now cleaning the shark out of my teeth. Did y'all get the shark? The little rolls? No? Okay. Never mind. By the way, this is a great setting. I've just been noticing the fish. Some of them look really grumpy, and others are smiling. And it's the sharks that are smiling. I don't know if that has anything to do with the way things are. They kind of remind me of people for some reason. But tonight I want to speak to you about something I think that can relate to all of us. Before I do, I want to read something that for those of you guys, most of y'all hadn't been involved in anything like this, but for you older, someone told me tonight this is a junior senior prom. The seniors are us old people and you guys are the juniors, so you'll understand that. But you seniors can probably relate to this better than these young people can. One day you will, though. This is fresh off the Associated Press, and we bypassed TNC News, by the way, for this. McDonnell Douglas discovers a new element. St. Louis, Missouri. The heaviest element known to science was recently discovered by McDonnell Douglas physicists here. The element, tentatively called administratium, has no protons or electrons and thus has an atomic number of 0. However, it does have 1 neutron, 25 assistant neutrons, 75 biased neutrons, and 111 assistant biased neutrons. That gives it an atomic mass of 212. These 212 particles are held together in a nucleus by force that involves the continuous exchange of meson-like particles called borons. Since it has no elements, administratium is inert. However, it can be detected chemically as it impedes every reaction that it comes into contact with. According to the McDonnell Douglas discoverers, a minute amount of administratium caused one reaction to take over 4 days to complete, when it would normally occur in less than 1 second. Administratium has a normal half-life of approximately 3 years, at which time it does not actually decay, but instead undergoes a reorganization in which assistant neutrons, biased neutrons, and assistant biased neutrons exchange places. Some tests have shown that the atomic number actually increases after each reorganization, although it is not yet clear just where the extra neutrons may come from. Research at other laboratories indicates that administratium occurs naturally in the atmosphere. The elements tend to concentrate at certain points, such as government agencies, large corporations, universities, and in schools. It can usually be found in the newest, best appointed, and best maintained facilities. The McDonnell Douglas scientists pointed out that administratium is known to be highly toxic at any level of concentration and can easily destroy any productive reactions where it is allowed to accumulate. Attempts are being made to determine how administratium can be controlled to prevent irreversible damage. The results to date are not promising. Due to the lack of funding, McDonnell Douglas has no plans for further evaluation. Now, some of you may understand that later on in life. What I want to talk to you tonight about kind of relates to this, and it's simply this. Things are not always as they appear to be. And as you go through life, you will find certain, challenges, circumstances, whatever. Life's going to throw you a curveball. The ground that you stand on from time to time is going to be shaken. And what you thought would happen does not always happen. Okay? And that's what I want to talk to you about this evening. I want to start out with a joke. Now, this is for the older people. Most of y'all heard my jokes, okay? So don't tell the punchline until I get it done here. There was a young boy. He was late from school one afternoon, actually in the early evening. He was at basketball practice, and so he decided to, he was coming home because he knew he was going to be late. Supper was at 6 o'clock, so he decided to take a shortcut through the cemetery. This boy's name was Mark. But anyway, Mark decided, man, I got to get home. His mom's going to get mad. Supper's ready, so he decided to take a shortcut through the cemetery. And so he's walking through the cemetery, and he's a little bit scared, nervous, because when you walk through the cemetery at nighttime, you don't know what can happen. Well, he's walking through the cemetery, and all of a sudden he hears, Mark, Mark. Stops, turns around, doesn't see anyone, so he picks up his pace a little bit quicker. Just walks a little bit further, and all of a sudden he hears it again, Mark, Mark. And this time he turns around again, doesn't see anyone. So he's down at a pretty good trot, getting through the cemetery, and this voice keeps getting closer. Mark, 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 Mark. And now he's running at full speed. He's getting through the cemetery, he gets out of the cemetery, comes around the corner where there's a light, and he turns around and hears this, Mark, 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 Mark. Turns around and it's a dog with a hair lip. Things are not always as they appear to be. That's all I'm trying to tell you. All right, let me give you some things here. Some various principles that I think will give you some stability and certainty in 3 areas of your life. And when I was in college, you go to these public speaking classes, and they teach you to give you 3 points and outline and shut up and sit down. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. And to illustrate, or not to illustrate, I'm going to use a passage out of the Bible that hopefully can give us something to take home. Because what I have to say to you really isn't that important, but I think what God would have to say to you, or something from the Scripture, a principle, can be life-changing and life-lasting. In Luke chapter 24, there's a story about 2 disciples who are on the road to a town called Emmaus. It's about a 7-mile walk, and as they're going down the road, the events that had just transpired was that the Lord Jesus Christ had just been crucified. He'd been buried for 3 days, and then the story had come back to them that, well, he's risen again, and the point, but they didn't understand all these things that were happening at the time, and so they're walking down the road, and they're real sad. The look on their face is very gloomy, and their heads are down, and they're just kind of like, I can't believe this has happened, and all of a sudden Jesus appears to them, and they don't see him. They don't know who he is. They just, he's just another guy walking down the road. So they start talking to him. He asks him a question: why are you so sad? And so they began to tell him all the things that happened. As a matter of fact, they said, what, you're a stranger here or something? Haven't you heard what's happened? And so they began to unload on him all these things that had just transpired in their life. And there's 2 verses in this passage I want to read. The first one is simply this. And they make this statement to him. And they said, when we trusted that it had been he which should have redeemed Israel. They were speaking of Jesus Christ. Because in their mind, Jesus was going to come in, he was going to wipe out the Romans, he was going to set up his kingdom, he was going to deliver the Jews out of the bondage of the Roman Empire, and they were waiting on that. I mean, for hundreds of years, the story of the Messiah, the one that would come, had been floating around. And now the guy who says he is him, and all the miracles validated that, now all this happens. And they just can't understand it. They can't fathom and come to the truth of this is the way it was supposed to be. Well, they walk a little further, they continue to talk, and Jesus kind of chimes in a little bit. He says, "O fools and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have told you." And he goes on and expounds in the Scripture all these things, at the beginning of Moses and the prophets, and they walk a little ways, and they come to the town of Emmaus, and the Lord was wanting to go a little further, and they said, no, come in with us and sit down and let's eat. So they did, and he continued to talk with them. All of a sudden, boom, their eyes were open. They realized who he was. And the Bible says he vanished out of their sight. And the last verse I want to point out is what they said next. And they said this. They said one to another, "Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us in the way and while he opened to us the Scriptures?" It was one of those things when, I don't know if you're ever around people, but you really enjoy being around. They're refreshing, they're encouraging, and it's just neat to be around. I had a friend like that in college. It's just really neat to be around them, and you always want to try to be with them if you can, and because they're uplifting, they're encouraging, and when you leave them, you feel good. Well, this is kind of the way that these disciples felt. But the point I want to make is this. What they thought was going to happen did not come to pass. It's because it wasn't God's plan. They wanted Jesus to come in and wipe out the Romans, set up the kingdom. Well, Jesus chose to fight the battle that they couldn't win, which was on the cross. And that was God's plan. And so what I want to point out to you tonight is simply this. There are certain things that happen in life that are not always as they appear to be. And I want to point out 3 things. And I've got to have an outline, so I have 3 points. Here they are. The first one is your future consequences. I'm going to start with the future. And by that I mean this. I want you to make, and this is kind of honoring the seniors, okay? So I'm mostly talking to you seniors, but you juniors can listen too. But over the next 6 months to a year, you're going to make some very, very important choices in your life. It's going to affect your future. And I want to encourage you to make the right choices. And I know I could go off on this, and there's a lot of areas we can talk about. There's only 2 things I want to touch on. One is make the right choice of friends. You look at me going, the statistics tell us that most people have maybe 5 friends in their lifetime. 5 good, close friends. I mean, that you're really close to. If you're lucky, you'll get 5 good, close friends. And normally, they're not your friends in high school. As a matter of fact, the majority of you, your closest friends, you've yet to meet. They will be after you get out of high school, going to college, or going to life. The relationships that you establish, those will be your lasting relationships and your most important relationships. So let me encourage you, choose your friends wisely. I'll use my light here so make sure I want to cover everything I want to cover here. In Proverbs it says, anxiety in the heart of a man weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. You know, we live in a troubled world which often creates within a troubled heart. And I can't express to you enough the importance of a good friend who can share a good word with you, who can encourage you and lift you up in times of trouble or turmoil or whatever you may go through. And only God knows within the next 6 months or 12 months some of the experiences that you're going to experience. Some of you may be going through something right now. It's heart-wrenching. You don't want to talk about to anyone. But I tell you what, a good friend is very, very important to you. And it's important to make sure you choose the right kind of friend. And there's another verse that says, the backslider in heart will have his fill of his own ways, but a good man will be satisfied with his. And I stress the idea of a good man or a good woman, whatever the terminology that's used there, but a good person. And I know your parents aren't here. We don't have a few parents that are here. But I know your parents' desire is for you to surround yourself with good people. Okay, and you may say, I want my friends to be my friends. Well, fine, you can make the choice, but be prepared for the consequences as well. There are billion-dollar corporations that pay tons of money to train their people, to train their employees, and they try to surround them with good people. Okay, you are who you run with. And they always talk about your level and above in these corporations and being around good people. So the first thing about your future consequences, make the right choice of friends. And for time's sake, I had an illustration. I'm going to skip it. So I'm going to go on to the next point, which is simply this. Make the right choice of career. I'm not here to tell you what career to choose. Whatever it is, make the right choice. Because right now, I would say that a lot of you are struggling with that very issue. What am I going to do? That's why I was a senior in high school. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And if I had to, raise your hand, how many of you know exactly what you're going to do? Well, some of you would know that. A lot of you don't know that, which is fine. Don't worry about it. But be careful in the career that you choose. Okay. I'm going to go to my next point, which is this. No, I'm not. I'm going to back up. I'm trying to read this. I'm going to use the points on this that I want to make. One is this. Don't forget where you came from. And don't forget who gave you what you have. Don't forget where you come from. That's very, very important. And also remember that the things that you're blessed with, the things that you have, I know there's a lot of, quote, self-made millionaires out there and people who are, quote, self-made. But I've really yet to meet a person who's self-made. There's always people involved. So don't forget those two things. Where you came from and who you are. Humility is sometimes a hard lesson to learn. And the Bible teaches us if we're not judged, if we don't judge ourselves, then we will be judged. If we don't humble ourselves, then we will be humbled. One of our teachers related this story at one of our teachers' meeting here a while back. But there was a church service one Sunday morning, and in the back doors came an old man, not a real old man, but an elderly man. He was dressed in real dirty, filthy type clothes, kind of unkempt, had a hat over his head, kind of stooped down, and he walked in, and of course, as us good church-going people have a tendency to do, we just kind of shied away from him. Nobody went up to him and said hi to him or talked to him and said, hey, why don't you come over and sit with me? They just kind of backed off because he was dirty and smelled a little bit, and nobody wanted to have anything to do with him. Well, the man stayed back in the back a little bit, and he proceeded down toward the front, and the same thing happened. Nobody came up and shook his hand. Nobody gave him a welcome card or anything like that. And so the man sat down for a little bit. Now the church service was being late, or was going to start, but it was kind of late now. Everybody's waiting on the pastor, and all of a sudden the man got up, walked on the platform, took off the coat, took off the hat. It was a preacher. And he looked at the congregation and he goes, well, I guess I don't have to tell you what our sermon's about this morning. And oftentimes we get that way, and if we're not careful, we begin to look down upon people and we think we're something we're really not. So, just the fact, don't forget where you came from, and remember who gave you what you have. The second thing, present circumstances. There's only one issue I want to touch on this, and it's called character. Someone once told me they define character as who you are when no one else is around. Whatever you do, who you are, but no one else is watching, that's the real you. Now the Bible defines character, I think, and there's several passages, but one verse in Psalm says, let me read it so I don't misquote it here. I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. Oh, when wilt thou come into me? I will walk within my house with a perfect heart. I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. Now, that's character. Doing what's right. Several weeks ago, someone put something in my box. I don't know who it was. I'm glad they did. It was a fax sent to our school. I want to read it to you. And kind of humorous, so listen up. At the highest level in our society has just shoved it out the door, so to speak. Now, I'll tell you, this is still important. I talked to a friend of mine here a few days back. I was out on a golf course with him, and we were discussing the idea of education and where the public school has gone wrong, and even where the Christian school has failed, is in these areas. The public school can educate, they can teach, and they can instruct, but you look at their success rate, it's very lousy. And we compare the Christian school. Okay, we're a little better, but when it comes to the character issue, we're not, which is where we're missing, or what we're missing. Because when you teach someone character, you can coach them on the basketball court, you can teach them in the classroom, and character is what counts. And as I observe our culture today, and your generation, what I see lacking is really character. And if someone asked me, well, what would I rather have for my children? I'd rather have them to have character than to have popularity. I'd rather them have character than to have riches and success. You cannot replace character. And it is so valuable and so important. So when it comes to your present circumstances, my question is this: are you making a difference in the people's lives around you? Now, you are, one way or the other. There's no middle ground here. You're making a positive difference, and you're making a negative difference. And the bottom line to me is, what kind of character do you have? And when things come your way, and you think it's supposed to be this way, and things are supposed to go well, and it doesn't go well, well, I tell you one thing you can rely on: your personal character. Okay, eventually things are going to turn around for you. Okay, it may not be the way you wanted it to be, but if you do it God's way, that's what counts. And let me finish with this. My last point: your future consequences, your present circumstances, and your past choices. Now, I started with the future for for a reason. That's, of course, yet to come. And I conclude with the past because there's nothing you can do about the past. And I have 3 words: forgive, forget, and just forge on. Just go on. I don't want to dredge up any bad thing. We've all done stupid things, okay, and bad things. The older you get, the more dumb things you've done. Okay? We just have a whole lot more to forget than you guys do. Us older people. But if you've done some dumb things, you've done them. Okay, but move on. Let's forget about the past. Move on to the present and the future. And I want to read this illustration again. Very much, not a lot of this is original with me, but I get it from other people. But just listen to it. A minister passing through the church in the middle of the day decided to pause by the altar and see who had come to pray. Just then, the back door opened and a man came down the aisle. The minister frowned as he saw the man. He hadn't shaved in a while. His shirt was kind of shabby. His coat was worn and frayed. The man knelt. He bowed his head. Then he rose and walked away. In the days that followed, each noontime came that chap. Each time he knelt just for a moment, a lunch fell in his lap. Well, the minister's suspicions grew. With Robert, a main fear, he decided to stop the man and asked him, "What are you doing here?" Well, the old man said he worked down the road. Lunch was half an hour. Lunchtime was his prayer time. That's where he found strength and power. I stay only moments, see, because the factory is so far away. As I kneel here talking to the Lord, this is kind of what I say. I just came again to tell you, Lord, how happy I've been since we found each other's friendship and you took away my sin. I don't know much of how to pray, but I think about you every day. So Jesus, this is Jim checking in. Well, the minister, feeling foolish, told Jim that was fine. He told the man he was welcome to come and pray just any time. Time to go, Jim smiled, said thanks. He hurried to the door. The minister knelt at the altar. He'd never done it before. His cold heart melted, warmed with love, and met with Jesus there. As the tears flowed in his heart, he repeated old Jim's prayer. I just came again to tell you, Lord, how happy I've been since we found each other's friendship and you took away my sin. I don't know much of how to pray, but I think about you every day. So Jesus, this is me checking in. Well, past noon one day, the minister noticed that old Jim hadn't come. As more days passed without Jim, he began to worry some. At the factory, he asked about him, learning he was ill. The hospital staff was worried, but he had given them a thrill. The week that Jim was with them brought changes in the ward. His smiles, a joy contagious, changed people were his reward. The head nurse couldn't understand why Jim was so glad. When no flowers, calls, or cards came, not a visitor he had. The minister stayed by his bed. He voiced the nurse's concern. No friends came to show they cared. He had nowhere to turn. Looking surprised, old Jim spoke up and with a smile, the nurse is wrong. She couldn't know that in here all the while, every day at noon, he's here. A dear friend of mine, you ask, he sits right down and takes my hand, leans over and says to me, I just came again to tell you, Jim, how happy I have been since we found this friendship and I took away your sin. Always love to hear you pray. I think about you each day. And so, Jim, this is Jesus checking in. Now, let me finish with this thought. We can't change the past, and don't try to. The Bible tells us that there's a friend that's sticking closer than a brother.
Writing this little connection mean. Okay. What comes to your mind when you hear Greg? I'm not going to go there. Greg has always been a unique person, but when you think about it, everybody's unique in their own way. There would be a time where I'd be down and I'd see Greg walking by and I'd just look at his ears and laugh. Just kidding. I'm sorry. TBA thanks you for your unique basketball season and your fashionable hairstyles. You will be remembered for your ability to drive the lane, to whine, and the way you yell when you talk, even if the person is 2 feet in front of you. To me, you will be remembered as a listener and an achiever and a friend. I thank you for giving me those 6.5 months last year to get to know you. You will be missed. I look up to you for your unique kindness and your determination to never give up no matter how bad the situation may be. The junior class wishes you all the luck and opportunity in the world, especially when it comes to school, girls, 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 basketball, and girls. Dustin, you are a really great guy, and I will cherish your friendship forever. And Dustin, if you're listening to this, my phone number is 299-9682. Please give it to your sister. She's so hot. And he says, yes, you will. Michael Dagar, 412. Michael, you have brought so much joy into everyone's life, and you have put tears in everyone's eyes from laughing. Cindy, you will be remembered for your red hair, your squeaky voice, and your twisted sense of humor. Next year will not be the same without your romantic encounters with Brian Fanning in the hall. or your quick pickup of dimes in Mr. Lewis's class. I'm sure he will thank you personally in private. As a junior, I look up to you for your determination to get out of here and graduate, your ability to make people laugh, and because you're taller than me. This year has been my most memorable year at Temple, and I thank you, Ziggy, for being a part of it. Mike, the junior class, and I wish you all the luck and opportunity in the